Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Korman Productions, here to talk about This Is Us, Season 1, Episode 17, titled Now What? The penultimate episode of Season 1. We only got one more to go until Season 1 is in the books. The episode's description reads as follows. Jack and Rebecca argue before the beginning of her tour. Kevin faces another opening night, while the entire family gathers at Randall's for an unusual party. The episode originally aired on March 7th, 2017, and detailed the aftermath of William's death. It was an excellent Season 1 entry of the series, as pretty much every episode from Jack Pearson's son on was in the first season. Before going any further, I will tell you a couple of things. 1. This is not a spoiler-free video, so if you haven't watched the episode, please go and check it out before coming back to me. Secondly, if you like this video and want to support the channel, please like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to my channel. We open up on William, still very much alive, writing out a note. I'm not sure when this takes place, but I'm assuming it's him writing his instructions for his wake. But he kind of seems in too good of shape. He's not wearing his oxygen mask before departing. This segues into Randall looking at William's room, preparing to clean it out. Beth tells him he doesn't need to do so yet. But Randall disagrees. He asks the question, I don't know what to do now. I don't know what I'm supposed to do to honor this man's legacy. It seems like that's a question that reverberates through the rest of the series. Quite a few of Randall's actions from this point on is a way to honor William's legacy. As Beth is comforting Randall, she discovers a note. And she tells Randall that he needs to read it. We cut to Randall trying to get a hold of a critic who he wants to review his play. But he won't. He won't even return his calls because the critic was at the play opening night and he wasn't. He's with Sophie, who suggests, why don't you tell them what happened? And Kevin replies that would require revealing Randall's business, and he doesn't want to do that to him. And that's a curiously selfless act for Kevin in the first season. Essentially, that means he's taking the hit with no explanation. And as we see in Season 5, this will come back to bite him in the butt. It's funny because Kevin has both the ability to be charming and obnoxious in the same scene. In the same span of 5 seconds, he manages this. He's quite talented. No wonder he's an actor. Kevin ends up suggesting that Sophie sit with his family, and she objects to that, saying she plans on hiding in the dark and avoiding the entire Pearson family, including Kate. And what is it with Kevin dating Kate's best friends? What's up with that? I mean, so far we haven't gotten any indication that Kate and Sophie kept in touch, but still, they were best friends in the past. And then, of course, there's Madison in the current timeline, though we have no idea of the status of their current relationship. We'll have to wait till Season 6 to perhaps find it out. Sophie starts to depart, and Kevin is all like, what, you're just going to leave me with a floundering career and a lukewarm Americana? You know, I know what an Americana is, and I have no idea why you're drinking it. I don't get the appeal. I really, really don't. Sophie mentions that he is currently dating his ex-wife, who he has a not exactly great history with, and he managed to win her back over. So he should be able to handle a critic just fine and dandy. We'll see about that. We cut to Randall, who is with his family, reading William's instructions. And we hear Ron Cephas-Jones' voice say that adults tend to make wakes very sad. So he's leaving the planning of the wake up to the kids. He wants the kids to make it fun. Beth tries to make some suggestions, but Tess, readily taking to the role, is already becoming a tyrant, and with a smile, saying that nope, your suggestions will not be required. This 100% seems completely and totally in character for William. It just seems like something that William would absolutely do. We cut to a Toby and Kate scene where Kate is on the phone trying to get balloons or something, and she is not happy with the answer she's getting from whoever she's talking to. Toby asks her on the phone, while she is on the phone, hey, if you want to talk about William or something, I mean, I know this is going to be hard for you, given the fact that, and basically Kate cuts her off and says, him off rather, and says, hey, I just want this to be special for Randall and the girls. And yeah, I don't think that Kate has any particular attachment to William. I don't even recall them sharing even a single scene together. This is more about Randall than it is about her. But then again, I think it is a little bit about her, because I think this is bringing up memories of their dad and the funeral that they all had to attend to, which of course is borne out by later in the episode. And I do believe that's somewhat the reason why she's acting like she is in this scene. We cut to the past timeline. Rebecca is getting ready to go to her show by putting on a hat and waiting for Jack to get home. We cut to where Jack is, which is at the office, having a retirement party for a person that he can't stand, which is something that Miguel points out. He tells him to just go home and see his wife off. Heather, which I believe is Miguel's secretary, tries to invite him to an after party, but Jack straight up blows her off. Jack gets home to a Rebecca that does not look happy with her in the slightest, and she suggests rather forcefully that they go and talk in the kitchen, while Kate, played by Hannah Zeal, in the past timeline, looks at Jack with concerned eyes. She gives him crap for basically being late, and then, after giving him more crap, goes over the schedule. Eventually, this morphs into talking about Sophia and Kevin. Or Sophie and Kevin, rather. It's the same difference. Whatever. Moving on. That conversation lightens the mood a little bit between the two of them. The conversation is interrupted by an insistent beep, which is of course Ben, looking to take her on the tour. Jack gently says it's time to hit the road, and Rebecca walks away from him without a kiss. She says goodbye to the kids. Kevin is indifferent, but Rebecca pulls him into a hug anyway. Kate is a little bit more emotional, and Randall is basically all, I love you more, which causes a disgusted sound from Kevin. He kind of earned that, honestly. Rebecca approaches Jack and says bye. Kevin says bye. Wow, not Kevin. Jack. Jack says bye back and gives her a peck on the cheek. Wow. And then Rebecca leaves the house. Jack meets eyes with Kate, who says a single word, Dad, and is still looking concerned. Implied in that is that Jack should go and make a better goodbye with Rebecca. But she doesn't say so. It's all non-verbal. Nicely played, by the way. Jack, in response, goes out into the lawn, but Rebecca is already gone. And credits. We get a scene of Jesse and Randall talking by phone. Randall had apparently reached out to Jesse to get him to come to the wake, or the memorial. And Jesse is declining his invitation. He's not doing so well. He's currently with his sister, and he's in a precarious mental state where he could potentially fall back into alcoholism or drugs. He relates a story about one of the members of the group that William attended, where William had pretended to know something about football to relate to a young man who wouldn't relate to anybody else. And Randall finds this story very amusing, wishing he could have seen William pretend to know anything about football. This is just another indication of the impact that William had on the lives of others. I'm pretty sure this is the final appearance of Dennis O'Hare as Jesse in this series, though I could be wrong. I don't especially see any particular reason why he would appear again. We cut to Kevin bursting through the offices of the critic that Kevin wants to go to his show, played by Ken Lerner, who is a pretty prolific character actor, having appeared in 156 television shows and movies. He appeared in The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Unlawful Entry, RoboCop 2, and where I remember him from was an episode in the 7th season of The West Wing. Kevin makes his case, and it's pretty convincing to me. I don't know that the critic went for it, though. We don't really get a conclusion in this scene. We cut to Randall getting a care package from the place he works, and it turns out to be a bunch of pears. The mailman takes a moment to ask about William, how he's doing, and Randall has to break the news to him that William is in fact dead. And I kind of found myself a little bit amused by this scene. Wow, William had such an impact on everybody he ever met that even the mailman is sad that he died. That's just a little bit too much for my tastes on the schmaltz. Beth wanders over to criticize the package that the place of work, Randall's place of work, sent, saying, "You've been out of work for 3 weeks after not taking a vacation forever, and this is what they send you?" Randall defends them, and he really shouldn't, for reasons that we will learn later. In the past timeline, the kids are dropped off at their various destinations, but Kate remains in the car. And Jack asks, "Do you want this cab to stop somewhere else?" And Kate rather bluntly asks, "Are you and Mom okay?" Jack says they're fine, and you're not fooling anybody, Jack. Kate says, "They don't seem fine." "It's just marriage," Jack says. "Stop it, we're fine." Okay. You could try a little harder to be a little more convincing here. Kate says that he should have gone to Rebecca's show, which was only 2 hours away. And Jack insists that she has more important things to worry about, like boys, like grades, this and that, the show that the band that always sounds like they're kidding, called Weezer, and by the way, I rather like that band, Weezer. Jack insists that Rebecca and him are the last things in the world that she needs to worry about. She seems to buy it, and says okay, and tells him not to sit home being sad the entire night. And Jack says, "How could I be sad when I have a kid like you?" In the present day, Miguel is trying to reassure Rebecca that things are going to be okay. That things were fine with Randall because Randall invited them. But Rebecca points out that the girls invited her, not Randall himself. She says things have not been the same ever since it was discovered that Rebecca had lied to him all those years. "He tolerates me, and that's about it." Meanwhile, Kate is fretting because they were supposed to have 50 balloons But Toby accidentally popped one, so now there's only 49. And Kevin seems to think, who happens upon the scene, that even that is a bit of overkill. Well, it was the girls planning this thing after all. But I doubt they're going to count. Randall greets the guests and says, "Well, aren't you guys all appropriately dressed for a funeral?" Yep, nice try on that joke, Randall. Nice try. Randall spots his mother and acts sort of awkward when the girls come out shooting poppers, which causes Kate to release the balloons. Well, now there's significantly less than the 49 that you guys started with. The girls' plan for the memorial is to reenact William's perfect day, starting with breakfast and taking of the pills, which are just M&Ms. Cut to the past timeline, where Jack is not sitting home looking sad, but he does look kind of pathetic, eating Chinese food by himself, watching TV. While watching an old movie, which I can't quite place, it's a really old movie, black and white, Jack makes a decision, and the decision is to go to the bar, which is the after party of his coworker's retirement party. Heather greets him and offers to buy him a drink, which Jack accepts. Back in the present day, Randall finds Beth looking at William's pills. He says he thinks he's figured out the toast, but notices that she seems a little upset. She points out that she filled out all his prescriptions, refilled every one of them. And she says William knew he wasn't coming back. The girls got a goodbye, you got your trip, what did I get? I loved him too, Randall. And I'm glad they reminded us of the fact that Beth and William had a bond too. One of my favorite scenes of the entire series was between the two of them. She says to Randall that she never even had a chance to say goodbye. And then she exits the scene in tears. In the next scene, the adults are drinking Blue Hawaiian Punch. And Miguel was curious what the significance of that was. Was it his favorite drink? And nope, apparently the girls misunderstood a conversation. It was his favorite strain of weed. Randall clears his throat and gets the attention of the assembled guests and starts to speak, saying that this is against the rules, but he's doing it anyway. William did not ask him to speak or say anything. William was a master of words, and he knew that Randall was no poet. But Randall says the real reason that William did not ask him to speak is because there was someone who was more deserving of a speech. And it turns out Randall thinks this person was Beth. And before I go any further with this, I should point out that they are using the kids' karaoke set as a means to give this speech. Beth takes the mic and says she doesn't know what to say because she's actually pretty mad at him for leaving. She says that he was a lot of things: a father, an artist, and a cheater at every card game. And he was her friend. She can look all over the house and see the memories that they shared. Her voice gets a louder pitch when she asks, "Did you guys know that he could dance?" Right there where Randall is standing, that big old pile of fragile bones, William's words, not hers, could dance and do the Charleston. He wasn't the fastest dancer, but he was endearing. William was endearing. And even though we only had him for a few months, he's part of our fabric now, and we cut to a shot of Rebecca looking guilty. We will remember things as before William and after. Randall stands up to give her a hug, and Kate by this point has had enough. She gets up to leave and starts crying. Toby tries to comfort her, but she doesn't want anything to do with that. She exits the house, She knows someone has followed her, and she assumes it's Toby. But it turns out to be Randall. Randall pulls her into a hug, and at this point, Kate is a sobbing mess. William dying brought a lot about her dad and how he died to the surface. Randall begins to describe a dream he had where Jack and William met and were laughing together over stories. This is one of the rare moments that Milo Ventimiglia and Ron Cephas-Jones actually gets to share the screen together. The only other time that I can recall it happening is in one of the 4th season episodes titled After the Fire, which was pretty much almost entirely Randall's imaginings of what life would have been like if Jack hadn't died. Randall ends up telling Kate that he's not the guy to tell her how to handle her feelings. But what he's learned is that you gotta let him out, and he really is the last person to be talking. But then again, his situation, what he just went through, and what he will continue to go through at various points in the series, is exactly why he knows this piece of information, even if he hasn't fully learned it himself. It's still good advice. He says, you gotta share him with the people that love you. Kate says that she knows. And Randall asks, do you? Because there's a really sweet guy, a real big guy in his living room right now who might think otherwise. Great scene between these two. Just beautiful acting from both Sterling K. Brown and Chrissy Metz. In the past timeline, Jack is at the bar, and Heather asks where the wife is. Eventually she gets around to hitting on Jack, and Jack stone cold turns her down, saying, you're embarrassing yourself. You're embarrassing me. Wow, that's hardcore. In the present day, the girls have a bunch of hats, like William used to wear. Most of them are colored and look like New Year's Eve hats that you might buy in the store. They all have to wear one of the hats. And Randall gets the real one that he wore. He's initially reluctant to do so, but eventually he's talked into doing it. Outside, along for a walk, Kate and Toby talk, and she tells him that she wants to talk about what happened to her dad, and suggests maybe they'll do so after the show, Kevin's show specifically. And this is where Kevin takes his leave of them, because he's got a show to put on that they will later watch. Randall and Rebecca end up walking alongside each other, and Rebecca says that William seemed to really connect with the girls in a very short amount of time. And Randall says, yep, that seems to be what William did. Just seemed to connect to everybody he ever met, including the mailman. Rebecca says to him that his father Jack taught him a lot about honesty and courage, but the truth of the matter is, he came into the world pretty perfect, and she's pretty certain that was William's doing. She goes on to start an apology, which Randall tries to wave off. Rebecca insists that she has to. She goes on to explain that the first time they met, he was so far gone. When she saw him years later, he was so much better. Randall got curious, and Rebecca got scared. She said she always planned on telling him that she would set age limits for when she was going to do it, and that time would come and go. But the fact of the matter is, she was terrified to do so, because she knew it would devastate him to know the truth. It was such a big, long why. She knew that she could lose Randall over it. Randall starts to tear, which drips down his face. He wipes it away. She admits that it was selfish, and that it was wrong. And she wants him to know, from the bottom of his heart, that she is sorry that they didn't get more time together. And Randall tells her it was enough. It was enough time to know that he loved him. And I know that he loved me. Another dynamite scene, and Mandy Moore is just pitch perfect here. I do have to point out that this kind of directly contradicts what happens in the finale of season 5, where Rebecca feels the need to apologize at Kevin's wedding and says that she never did so. But she's doing so right here in season 1, episode 17. She apologized for what she did to Randall. So what happened to them in the finale is a bit of a contradiction. We cut to Kevin in the dressing room, and he asks the assistant if Brendan Novak, the critic, has picked up his ticket, and she goes and checks. In comes Sophie, who makes a joke about seeing a different play. She's brought him a crutch for when he breaks his leg. But interestingly enough, this is also a little bit of foreshadowing for the younger teen's ultimate fate, because he ends up hurting himself and walking around with crutches, and he is that way when his father dies. We cut to Kevin during the play, and it seems to be going really well. The crowd is pretty full. Brendan Novak is nowhere to be seen, but the crowd is there. It is not an empty theater, like Kevin feared. The crowd gives him a standing ovation, and Sophie is in the back, watching and smiling. His family gives him full-throated support. Sophie seemingly sneaks out the back, probably not to be seen by the Pearson clan. We cut to the Pearson clan coming to congratulate Kevin on a job well done. Miguel comments that he's impressed that he managed to remember all those words. And Randall says there is now a man where the man he once stood, and he gives his brother a hug. We cut to Randall walking on the street with Beth, and they are late to relieve the babysitter. But Randall says he has to make a stop at the office. And Beth is incredulous, saying, "Babe, it's 10 o'clock. And Randall points out, "Yep, they're all still there. Big deadline. There's just something I have to take care of." Randall goes to the office, and his boss seems relieved to see him. But he's not there to work. He's there to quit. He says he's worked there for 10 years, put his blood, sweat, and tears into the office, got up early every day. And after 10 years, it amazes him that his boss doesn't know that he is allergic to pears, the very pears that the office sent for condolences for William passing away. And his boss would know that he was allergic, because he was there when he had an attack due to eating pears. He tells Sanjay it's all his show now, and Sanjay is looking at him with amazement. I don't know if he admires Randall for this. I don't know if he's just... I really don't know how Sanjay is reacting to any of this beyond simple amaze and that stupid look he has on his face. And I'll never know, because we're never going to see him again. He's not important after this episode. The boss asks him, what is he going to do? He's been plagued by the question, how do I honor my father's legacy? And to honor it, he is going to take what he learned from how William lived his life and live his life that way. To the question that Tyler asks him, he says he doesn't know. Maybe instead of running in the morning, he'll go for a walk. Slow things down a little. Talk to his mailman. So perhaps when Randall dies, the mailman will be upset, just like he was when William died. To Randall, that seems like a good way to start the day. And he leaves smiling. We cut to Kevin exiting the theater. He's admiring the posters when Sophie comes out from behind a wall and starts bantering with Kevin some more. She asks, "So, Brendan Novak?" And Kevin comes back, "He's a no-show." Kevin says it doesn't matter, because he looked out in the crowd. He saw the empty seat, and it made him sad, he's not going to lie. But then he saw the other seats, filled with his family, filled with Sophie. And that was a filled crowd, by the way. That was not just his family. And he realized that's what was important. And then he realized he didn't come to New York to be in a hit play. He came to New York to get his girl back. Nice romantic speech, Kevin. Kevin says he's not going to mess things up with her again. And however long it takes to convince her of that, he's going to take. Yeah, we'll see about that, Kevin. Well, this speech is enough to get Sophie into bed, so mission accomplished, I guess. And no, I don't think that's exactly what Kevin was trying to do. He believes every word he's saying, but he's not quite ready. He's not in a place yet where he can make things work, as the series will bear out. And sorry if that's a spoiler warning, but this couple is not long for the world. Beth comes home to an empty house. The kids are all asleep. She looks through the mail and discovers a postcard. A postcard from William, saying, "I told you I would send you a postcard." William left her something after all. She smiles and cries at the same time. We cut to a scene of Kevin and Sophie in bed, and he's getting a phone call. It turns out to be from Ron Howard, the famous director. You might remember him as having directed Apollo 13, among other movies. Kevin does not initially believe it, but eventually he gets over his skepticism. Ron Howard apparently took his kids to see a play, which turned out to be A Back of an Egg, Kevin's play, and he's convinced that Kevin would be perfect for his movie. We cut to the past timeline, where Jack is calling Carol, asking if it would be too much trouble for the kids to spend the night, and then he asks to speak to Kate. We cut to Kate and Toby talking about the play, and Kate is going on and on about how Kevin was super great. Toby brings the conversation back to what Kate said she would talk to him about her father's death. She says there's something that she needs to tell him if they're going to begin their life together in LA. And she asks him if he remembers when she said she wasn't ready to talk about her father's death. And of course Toby does. And Kate reveals that she thinks it's because it was her fault that Jack died. Toby just looks at her confused. And Kate straight out says, "I am the reason that he is dead." We cut to the past timeline, where Jack tells her, "Hey, princess, it's Dad. He wanted her to know that she was right. I'm gonna fix things with your mother. I love you, Katie girl." He says goodbye, hangs up the phone, and takes off, presumably to patch things up with Rebecca. And that is where the episode ends. Now, I'm gonna talk a little bit about this. The creators thought, or rather not the creators, the people reviewing the show thought that this would be a perfect time to reveal how Jack died. It seemed like the penultimate episode was setting up that question, with Kate revealing that she thought she was responsible for Jack's death. They were massively disappointed when, in the finale, Jack does not die. From a dramatic standpoint, setting up the penultimate episode with Kate's final line of being, "I am responsible for my dad's death," it makes absolute sense that his death should have been presented in the final episode of Season 1. I always thought it was a bit of a mistake not answering that question and letting it be the mystery of the series. They put off the answer to that question until probably, I think it was late in Season 2. Admittedly, I was a little surprised and a little disappointed that they did not reveal the reason why Jack died in the finale of Season 1 when I initially watched it. I'm not sure that I could argue against how they ultimately ended up presenting his death in Season 2. The next time I talk about this series, I'm not quite sure when that's going to be. It'll either be next week or the week after. We will be talking about that finale and see if my attitudes or views towards it have changed. I still think it's a pretty good finale either way. But how I feel about the finale all in all, and the end of Season 1. I'd actually like to squeeze in both a Quantum Leap video and a This Is Us video next week, but I'm not totally sure if that's how it's going to play out. So anyway, that's all I got for you for this video. If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Korman Productions. You can join my 2 Facebook groups, the This Is Us discussion page as well as the Korman Productions page. You can buy something from the Korman Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a copy, which is a new way to support content creators such as myself. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to my channel. This is Dave from Korman Productions, signing off.